On today's show, we examine what I believe is a historic development for the future of the domain industry. Jeff Sass joins us from Names.Club to discuss how their new financing model is impacting both domainers who want to invest and end users who want to pay for a domain, short-term or long-term, in a different fashion. This is the future. Learn how you can take an option on a domain. Andrew Rosener also joins us from the domain investor perspective. Our discussion naturally leads to domain valuation and some provoking thoughts on potential developments in the industry in the next 5 years. Don't miss a minute of this show. Enjoy. First, serious about online trading? Secure your funds, keep your merchandise safe, and use a company that keeps the buyer and seller protected the whole way through. That's escrow.com. Payments you can trust. Hi, Sherpa Network. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Tess Diaz, executive producer of DomainSherpa.com. Today, we're joined by Jeff Sass. Jeff is the CMO of the .club domains registry. They've created Names.Club, and we're here to discuss that in much further detail today. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Tess. Great to be here on the Sherpa Show. I've been a Sherpa before, but never under the new regime. So I'm very excited to be here again as part of the next generation of Domain Sherpa.
Thank you so much. Love your .club shirt. Andrew Rosener, CEO of Media Options. Good morning. Hello.
Good morning, Jeff. Welcome.
Good morning, Andrew.
Great to see you.
Always.
Delighted to have you.
And great to see me.
Delighted to have you here, Drew, joining us really as a .club end user or domain investor. We'll learn more as we discuss. Sound good?
Great.
All right. So real quick, let's give the Sherpa Network a background. So the .club registry is a registry that's like a distributor of the domains, period. And as you had, like every other registry, premium domains, and you're releasing them, you created this marketplace, Names.Club. And I love the name, love how it could be anything, and you really expanded. So as you got traction, especially with setting up payment plans, you're really on the forefront of payment plans for the domain industry. As you got traction, first you opened it up to other registries who also maybe owned premium domains or wanted to release some names, especially with payment plans. And now, recently, you've opened it up to domain investors too.
That's correct, Tess. We've always, as the registry, we had the opportunity to sell premium names ourselves and also through the registrar channel. And early on, we saw that almost all of the premium names we sold directly, we closed the deal by offering terms, by offering payments to the buyers.
Finance.
And we really feel that when it comes to end users, businesses, entrepreneurs, startups who want to use a great premium name for their business, having the ability to pay it over time makes a huge difference. Writing a big check up front, even for a few $1,000s, is a big deal for a small business. Whereas if you could pay it monthly, you can possibly pay it out of cash flow, it becomes much more manageable. So we always believed that that was the best way to sell premium names. And we would go to our registrar partners and say, you guys should offer financing. You guys should offer payments. And a lot of them says, well, show us the data, show us the data. So we actually built Names.Club initially to prove that point, to show that we can generate a lot of premium name sales by offering easy payments. And we launched it, as you and Drew have mentioned, originally just with .club premium names.
And how long ago was that, Jeff?
So that was 2 years ago. So it originally launched as Get.Club, and it was exclusively .club premium names. Then last year, a year ago, we switched it over to Names.Club and opened it up to other registries to offer their premium names for sale as well. And we launched it with names from MMX and GMO with .shop, and now we have names from Radix, and we've got a lot of other registries coming on board with their registry-owned names. Then at this NamesCon just a few weeks ago, we launched it and opened it up to anyone with domain names who wants their sell domains and any extension. So it's not just limited to the new extensions like .club and .shop and .store and .tech, but also .com and .biz and .whatever. So any extension. The only requirement we have is it has to have a standard renewal. So we don't accept names that have these high premium renewal prices because that doesn't really fit the financing model. And we're looking for names typically that are priced at $5,000 or more. So again, it makes sense to finance those names. And we're trying to curate the list of names, so not every name that gets submitted is going to be accepted. We want it to be a quality marketplace. And the key to it is the buyers can get those names for a small down payment. It's a 15% down payment typically. And then the remaining balance is split into 60 equal payments over 5 years. No interest is charged, so it's really just very easy. And we treat it more like a subscription, so you can cancel at any time. So if you're a small business and you want to try to start something and you're using a great premium domain and 6 or 9 months later it's not working out, you can change your mind. You could stop making your monthly payments. We take the name back, so the owner of the name gets the name back. It's someone else selling it. And the person who is making those payments doesn't get any money back, and the seller keeps whatever money they've received to that point, but then they can go and sell that name all over again. So we treat it more like a subscription than a lease.
That's brilliant, brilliant. And you're really at the forefront here. I mean, is anyone else in the domain industry doing this, Jeff?
There are a lot of, not a lot, but there are a few marketplaces and places where you can finance your domains, over various periods of times, but I'm not aware of anyone who's doing it as a subscription in this fashion where there's no interest being charged and it's very easy to cancel anytime. So I think we're unique in that front, and we're unique in that the focus of the marketplace is really on these easy payments, providing this easy payments. There is a buy it now price, and if someone wants to just buy the name and pay it in full, they can, but really the focus is on making these great premium domain names. And now with all the new, we've got great .com names, we've got great keyword names, we've got great brandable names, and all of those great names are available now to a small business for a very affordable monthly fee instead of them writing a big check up front.
And is that so can anyone actually outright purchase a domain through Names.Club?
Yes, there's always a buy it now option as well, so they can pay the full price as well. The other interesting thing we've been doing is expanding our distribution. So you can go directly to Names.Club, but we also have some registrars coming on board. We've already launched with Namecheap. So if you go to Namecheap right now, and you'll see certain names that are priced at $5,000 or more have a finance button next to them. And if you click that finance button, it's actually Names.Club that is powering the easy payments for that. And we're going to be launching that on several other registrars very soon as well. So when you list your name for sale, if you're a domain investor and you want to list your name for sale on Names.Club, you'll also get the benefit of distribution through the other registrars where we're powering their financing.
That's wild. So you're really looking for a solution from your registrar partners, and in the end, you built it yourself, and you found it so successful, you're expanding it. That's super cool.
Yeah, we're trying to make it easy for the buyers, and we're making it easier for registrars to offer financing on the names that they sell too.
Yeah, and Drew, I feel like what you would say is you're also changing how people view domains as an asset, right? What are your thoughts on domains as an asset in this light?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a big advocate of sort of alternative domain sales structures for a while. So when Jeff and I sat down and had breakfast two or 3 years ago, when you guys had first launched, I think it was get.club or right. At that point, we had this whole deep discussion about this is the way forward. This is the best way to get these names in the best hands at the right moment in time, because it gives these people, first of all, an opportunity to get their hands on the best name for their business. I mean, forgetting about what names we're talking about, right? But whether we're talking about .com, new GTLD, regardless, right? You were just talking about the concept of the way that the marketplace is structured. And, it's giving these guys, the entrepreneur, the startup founder, the company with, who doesn't necessarily have the budget yet, an opportunity to get the best version of their name on day one and not have to do a rebrand later because they bought something with a prefix or a suffix or some other made-up brand or whatever it might be. And it gives them a path to ownership, even though, with immediate use. And it creates cash flow for the investor or for the registry. It's like, it's genius in the end. But it takes awareness, and it takes education, and it takes, adaptation for the market to sort of accept it. But I think in my eyes, this has always been the way forward. This is the way to get more names in, out of the sidelines and into the market, in the hands of people who are going to use them, create value, and let some of that value flow back to the registries and the domain owners. And, we can have a deeper discussion about, the implications of that, later on. But, I immediately got it and agreed that was a great move for .club. And we took advantage of it. I don't think we were the first one, but we were one of the first ones to start, sort of, I'm not going to say back up the truck because we didn't take that many, but we probably took 30 names, 40 names, but great names, most of which we did through the sort of Names.Club
easy payments,
easy payment solution. And, I guess from the investor standpoint, the reason I loved this was, looking at the new GTLD market in general, if you want to say you're going to make investments in new GTLDs, then I think it's very important for you to set a time, like any investment. If you're going to invest in anything, you need to go into it knowing already what is your time frame. Are you looking for a quick flip? Are you looking for a long-term holding? Are you looking for, to sort of get in early and get out when the market matures? Why are you investing? What's your time frame on this investment? Or where do you see your role here? Are you an early investor? Are you an early adopter? Are you, a long-term holder? What's your role? And so from my perspective, in the sort of limited investment that we've made, limited in terms of overall scope and ratio of our total domain investment, I was looking at new GTLDs, the select domains that we wanted to invest in, with a 5-year horizon. I said, okay, it's early days. I think that, some number of these are going to stick. I think that there will be some degree of adoption and use, but it's going to take 5 years to actually see what the results are going to be. And so whatever we're investing in now, I'm basically just closing my eyes and, wake me up in 5 years and we'll evaluate at that point. And so the idea that I can execute that plan without paying any interest, and I don't have to make my final payment on any of the names I'm buying until that 5-year horizon has already expired or is coming due. That's a no-brainer. It's like, I can tie up my capital for 5 years, or I can get an option on this name that I can walk away from at any point. And in 5 years, if I was right and this was a good investment, well, it's exponentially a better investment for me because I was basically, using the house's money to carry it for 5 years.
Yeah, and I think, Drew, what you touched on, calling it an option is really interesting. And I've seen you and other domain investors, use Names.Club in that fashion, because basically, if there's a name you want, and again, now we're talking about names of any extension, including some great .com names, instead of having to buy that name and own it and hold it to resell it, if you have, it's a name you think you can sell, you can essentially take an option on that name by paying a much smaller down payment and your monthly payments. And then as soon as you find a buyer and you're ready to flip that name, then you just pay the balance in anything you've sold it for over the balance you owe is yours to keep. So you can turn around and make a profit of thousands of dollars without investing thousands of dollars up front, which you'd have to do now by treating it almost like taking an option. And we've seen quite a few domain investors do that with a number of different names. I think you've had a few sales that way yourself.
Yep. Yeah. We sold Life.Club, which I think we had made, I don't know. What do you think? A year of payments on?
Yeah, you made maybe 3 months or 4 months worth of, payments?
Yeah, it was under a year. It was under a year.
So this was one of the domains, Life.Club was one of the domains that you bought and planned to close your eyes and wake up in 5 years.
Exactly. And then I think it was a German bank. Let me just see what's up there now. I think it was a German bank came along and decided, what is this? Is this the bank?
We're getting a lovely close-up of the famous Drew
So
Beard.
I think it was a German bank. I'm not sure. It's not immediately apparent that it's a bank on the website. But anyways, it was a German company, and they came along, and they wanted the name. And so, they were very difficult to negotiate with, to be honest. We didn't, get the price I was hoping for. But I think we still got something like a 300% return on the face value of the name. But we had actually only paid, 20%, let's say, 15 to 20% of what the face value was. So we sold the name. The only, and this doesn't have to be the case, right? We can get into that a bit more. But in this case, we sold it through Sado. And so in order to complete the sale on our end, we had to pay off .club first in order to take possession of the name. And then we could complete the sale with Sado, but we were able to, wait until the buyer had paid Sado, so we knew that the deal wasn't going to fall through. The buyer had paid Sado. We then went and, we can't use that money because that money's in escrow with Sado, but we could then go and pay off the remainder of our .club, our Names.Club deal. To take possession of Life.Club and then transfer it to the buyer. And it worked. It was a proof of concept. And, I still believe it's early for that to work at scale in the new GTLD space. But with opening this up to, other names, I think that this is, I wish more people and more marketplaces would do this because I just think it shifts, as Tess was sort of saying, it shifts the whole perspective. This is the way companies, take, use or I don't know what the word is, invest in, utilize, contract their commercial real estate. And so, in one form or another. And so why wouldn't it make sense for their, internet real estate? And I've heard all the arguments against it, but it's still, to me, for a startup or an early stage organization, it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely. And for a domain investor, because I know obviously that
also
listening to this show, but if you have, let's say, Tess, you always give examples on Sherpa with people, let's say if you have 5,000 to spend or 10,000 to spend, what should you do to get into it? Well, this gives you the opportunity to build a much bigger portfolio with that $5,000 or $10,000 investment. Instead of sinking that into one name, you could use that as down payments and a few months payments on 5 or 6 names and have a much bigger portfolio to work for the same amount of cash up front. So it opens up some interesting opportunities. If you went
to your equities broker and wanted that kind of leverage, it would cost you a lot. You're not getting that kind of leverage for free. So, it's literally, you're leveraging the house's money at 5x, more than 5x because you're paying monthly, but call it 5x, interest free. So it's,
and I think the key here,
you want to be making educated and intelligent bets, but you are, this domains is a number game. Even if you're buying the best names, you need to have a certain number of them in order to create consistent sales. So this gives you the ability to leverage up your portfolio and spread out your investments to a larger number of assets with the same amount of capital.
And I just want to point out the key here, and the reason that we're doing this, it's, this is not a sales pitch for everyone to go out and sign up, either to purchase or to sell or both on Names.Club. Although
it's okay if you want to do that, that's fine.
Absolutely.
But this is an important shift in the industry. Even domain registrars did not see this opportunity. Like Drew just said, this is how end users, view and manage their commercial real estate purchasing. And it's really important. This is, in my opinion, a monumental shift that is going to open domain investment and end user domain usage on both ends. It's funny because you would think, like with the subscription model, it would only be on one end, but with your financing structure, it really is opening it for domain investors too. And I think this is going to make a big difference. Like if I had to give the history of domain investment and domain adaption, domain valuation understanding, I think this is going to be a part of that. Don't you?
Yeah, I think absolutely, Tess. And another area that we didn't talk about that's kind of interesting, that this notion of financing, especially when it's treated as a subscription, kind of opens up, is for marketing and marketing campaigns. Because one of the areas that we always don't talk about enough, in my opinion, because I'm a marketer, is domain names are the ultimate call to action, right? Every advertisement in every medium, whether it's on the side of a bus or a digital ad, always ends with a domain name as the call to action. And I think one of the changes that the introduction of all the new extensions created was this opportunity to create a domain name that's a really great call to action for a campaign, because you have all these extensions that actually have meaning and create words and create exact match phrases, etc. So now if a business or a brand, wants to use a domain name, not as their primary web address, they've already got that, but for a specific campaign, instead of having to buy that domain and own it forever, they could potentially just finance it, right? Lease it for a few months, use it for their campaign, and when they're done with the campaign, they can cancel their subscription, or they could decide to keep it if they want to use it going forward to the future. But it gives you the flexibility to be very creative, not be limited to a single domain name as your one and only portal, but to use multiple domain names for different purposes and be able to afford to do that in a way that's much easier than having to build a portfolio of names for all your campaigns.
Interesting.
So let me ask you something. I agree with everything that you've just said, but I think it's a bit confusing talking about it as a subscription option. So why? Just give me your justification for calling it a subscription versus financing.
Well, because technically it's more like that. Oftentimes when you finance something, you're still on the hook for the balance. If you enter into a lease agreement.
But it is a direct path to ownership.
Yes, and so is this. If you click it out the end.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is a direct path to ownership.
Absolutely.
Whereas a subscription would be like, I look at like my I guess I don't have a direct contract with VeriSign, so to speak. It's with the registrar. So I guess what I pay my $850 a year for my .com domain, I look at that as more like a subscription.
Yeah, I think it's a hybrid. I think the difference is, yes, it's absolutely a path to purchase, and if you make all your payments, then the name is yours, absolutely. But in the meantime, you're not paying interest, which is typically the case in a traditional finance or lease, and you can cancel at any time without any penalty, which is also not typically the case in a traditional finance or lease. So it's kind of a hybrid. Yes, it's a path to ownership, but at any point along the way, you can cancel, just like you might cancel a magazine subscription and they won't send it to you anymore. You can't use the name anymore. You don't get back any of the money you've paid up until that point. Yeah. So it is somewhat of a hybrid, but that's why we think of it as a subscription. And we want to stress that to businesses because they need to know they're not on the hook. So if they buy a $10,000 or $20,000 name and they are rolling $2,000 or $3,000 into it and they change their mind, they're not on the hook. They're not obligated to pay the balance. So
it's like a much Airbnb-ing your commercial real estate. You got no mortgage, you have no liability, you just can have
But
it.
to Drew's point, it's a little different because you're not on a path to buy that Airbnb, whereas here you are on a path to actually buy the domain. So it's a hybrid.
The reason I make the distinction is because I think that this is sort of an intermediary step, and I think that this could be an entirely other show, actually. But I think that you know, maybe 5 years down the line, maybe sooner, I think that the whole aftermarket likely will move to, or let's say the top portion of the aftermarket will likely move to some kind of subscription type of scenario that may or may not lead to, have a path to ownership.
Right.
You've got a lot of people with, they're very concerned about the price increase of .coms with VeriSign. I was among those folks. I'm far less concerned about it today than I was previously. And I'm far more concerned about other threats from VeriSign, such as them wanting to, not make $7.86 on, the domain I just sold for $1 million. They would much rather have a larger share of that value, even if it wasn't upfront, if it was over time. And I think, that we'll see them try and move into that market and basically adopt like a Names.Club type of structure. But my guess is it won't have a path to ownership. It'll just be a premium ongoing, much like some of the other GTLDs have done.
Yeah, some of the names that have premium renewals, it's pretty much like that. It's like you're paying the amount for
Drew, is that already something in the works, or that's just something?
No, not at all. But I think that it's, just based on the actions they've taken, the threats they've made publicly, the narrative that I sort of hear, and just pure logic of public company, they need growth. .com growth is going to peak. We're already sort of peaking. How do you maintain that growth as a public company? It ain't going to be from .web. And so, they can get their price increases. Anybody that's got a problem with that, not that I think it's okay. It's public company with a 63% margin. I mean, that's unheard of. Why do they need a price increase? But that being said, they have a fiduciary responsibility to continue to grow to their shareholders, and that's just the reality. And so, if you got a problem with it, buy VeriSign stock. Right?
And join the ICA.
It's the best. It's the best hedge you're going to get. But I think that the point of the discussion wasn't to talk about price increases. The point is that I think that is the future. I think we're taking these stepping stones towards, okay, well, there's going to be this aftermarket where, .com values are rising. And I think, at the top 2% of .coms, prices are rising. There's no doubt about it. Every single person I spoke to at NamesCon who owns a portfolio of really ultra premium .coms had the best year of their life in 2018. Top domains were selling at materially higher prices and in faster sales cycles than I've ever seen before. Most of the people I spoke with agreed. And I think that trend will continue even in if we see, an economic downturn here. I think, venture capital is going to have one of the greatest liquidity events, multiple events this year in history. You're going to see hundreds of billions of dollars return to venture capital. A good portion of that's going to be reinvested. I think you're going to see the startup market enter into a larger bubble than we're even in now, and that's going to carry on for a couple more years. And so, .com values on the best .coms are going to reach a valuation that most companies won't be able to pay, particularly startups, except for the most well-backed. And those companies are already at a later stage. And so, whatever. I think it'll become more rational for people to say, yes, instead of paying me $1 million, instead of me paying you $1 million for that domain, I'm going to just pay $5,000 a month for this domain indefinitely.
As long as I want to use it, yeah.
Just indefinitely. It's $5,000 a month. I'm going to just pay $5,000 a month. It's like what I pay the guy to clean my floors, at the office. And
And the timing here is key. The timing within the economy you're describing, Drew, is so perfect for .club opening this up to all domain names. Now, Jeff, I have one more question, and then I want to get some numbers out of you.
Sure.
So what about blacklisting, spam? What if the buyer, or I guess you don't call them a leasee, the user?
Yeah, so obviously they're subject to some pretty rigid terms of use that give us the right to take the name back if they do anything that's abusive or doesn't follow our terms and conditions. So it's pretty standard. Plus, that's part of why we do charge a down payment. So these people have put 15% down, and then they're making their monthly payments. So that's going to deter potential bad actors from just they're spending quite a bit of money that they're going to lose. Should they misuse the domain and violate our terms and have it taken away from them for that reason. So it's pretty well covered, and we have not had any issues ever, since inception.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's been fine, but obviously we have to monitor that carefully, and obviously.
So you proactively monitor that to make.
Well, we address any complaints immediately, and
Okay.
we stay on top of it. And like I said, it hasn't really been an issue, but of course it's something that we want to protect the buyers from, and it's very clearly covered in our terms of use.
Interesting. Okay. Very neat. I know that's usually one of the biggest concerns with the lease is not to damage the value. That's
correct. Yeah. But I think, the most common analogy with domain names is, calling it virtual real estate. And when you think about the real estate industry, most real estate, whether it's commercial or homes, is not purchased outright. It's purchased with some type of a lease or mortgage or payment plan. When someone buys a car, most people, have it being financed. So when you look at these high value domains, there's no reason why you wouldn't want to handle it, in the same fashion as kind of Drew was alluding to.
Yeah. Okay. And I can't resist, even though I want to get to the numbers, I just have to ask. So with everything you're describing, there's usually insurance. And I had an interesting conversation at NamesCon, totally not my area of expertise. Do you, both of you, ever think there will be insurance for domains?
I mean, if you go back to my first interview with Michael Seiger on this show, DomainSherpa, ever, I believe that first episode was about the what Michael deemed, and I've forever been cursed with, the Rosener equation. And, talking about how to value domain names and my thought process around that. And we talked about why I'm so passionate about, so the reason for this show, other than the fact that I just love Jeff, is, and Colin too, is that there's like three things. There's three, let's say three. Domains have been good to me. Okay, we've done very well with domains. I love the domain market, and I guess I'm at a point where it's like, sure, I'm happy to just keep doing what I'm doing and make a good living, but I want to make an impact. I want to have some lasting effect. I don't want to just be, the guy who's grinding it out. And, I want to, there's certain things that I would like to leave a stamp on. And those three things are value. So I really, truly believe that there is a, data-driven approach to domain value that is not objective. Even if there are certain objective variables that go into it, I think, 80% of the value of a domain can be calculated. And we just have to, keep refining the way that we assess it. And there's some really exciting ways to go about doing that are coming about in the next few years with, deep learning and crowdsourced intelligence. Second thing is liquidity. And I think Names.Club, addresses, one of what I believe is the greatest solution to liquidity, or it's at least the first step towards addressing the liquidity issue in domains. And leverage is probably, the third. And valuation is so critical because you can't introduce any of these value-added products to the domain market, such as leverage, such as insurance, such as fractional ownership, such as, asset-backed lending. And you can't do any of that until people can agree on what the value is. And right now, nobody agrees on what the value of domains is. And so that's our biggest flaw. And the moment we can come up with a defensible valuation methodology, we will have insurance products. We will have banks taking domains as collateral to provide loans. We will have fractional ownership and funds that are accumulating domain names. We'll have, domain-centric, auditors and a whole slew of other products. So yes, I do believe that someday we will have insurance products directly related to domain names, a variety of them, but it all 100% depends on the industry having a framework for value.
Yeah, but it's interesting too, Drew, because domain names are very unique because they're on the one hand, they can be considered like a commodity, and what you're talking about is moving it more towards that direction.
No, very much that's not the case. I agree that there are certain domains which should be treated like a commodity.
Right.
Those primarily being exact match keyword.
Right.
Not like that you're going to use it as a brand, but like carinsurance.com or car.insurance or things like this. These are commodities. These are 1,000% data driven. It's how many people want that product? What is that? What's the value of a customer? How many customers can what's your strategic advantage of owning the name?
Right.
Some multiple on that, and there's your value.
Yeah, and then the flip side is many domains are like works of art, right?
Exactly.
Where beauty is the eye of the beholder. And
Absolutely.
To one person, if it's the right person, price becomes almost immaterial. Or what they think is a price someone else would look at like they're crazy. But for them, it's a work of art. It's the name they want. It resonates with them, and they react to it emotionally, and they're willing to pay for that.
So but let me play devil's advocate for 1 second. So yeah. I totally 100% agree with you. However, where we are not on the same page is that I believe there's a measurable reason why that person feels that domain is a piece of art that they must have. And I think that reasoning why they feel that way can be measured, and that measure is inherent to its value.
I mean, pieces of art can be valued. I'm in Phoenix. We got Frank Lloyd Wright houses all over the place.
Yeah, but it's probably much more objective. It's much more objective. This is commercial. This is transactional. Yeah. So you can take a domain that is, I don't know, like, I'm trying to think of one that's like, got super high emotional value. I was just talking to somebody about one yesterday, but I can't say it because I'm hoping that we're going to get the contract to sell this. Let's use Bloom.com, which we're brokering right now. Bloom.com, is, it's sort of a clean slate. It has a super positive connotation. Bloom in itself has some sort of commercial implication. First thing people are going to think of is flowers, of course, but it can easily be used and is being used in a tremendous number of different markets that have nothing to do with flowers. And so how do you measure the value of Bloom.com? Well, yes, I still believe that search volume and the cost per click that advertisers are paying for the keyword are essential tools to assessing the value of that name. But I think that there are, even if it's not, or at least I'm not capable of measuring these things today, doesn't mean they're not possible to measure. And I think that looking at the many different ways that we can measure a keyword or an acronym's use in commerce and use in culture in ways that we're not even talking about or thinking about today, if you can measure how that keyword is used, it's not only its prevalence of use, but it's the way that it's being used and its integration and its velocity. If you can measure those things, you can find its inherent value. You can put a value on that. And if you look at something like Bloom You've got a bunch of very positive trends like cannabis, for example, that are putting a booster under the velocity of a keyword like Bloom. And you've got, that one guy who's going to say, I must have that name. The price is no object. Yes and no. There's emotion there that probably can't be measured and probably represents that last 20% of the equation. But the 80% can be measured. Why is it so emotional for him? Well, it's so emotional for him because he's built a business that is on a certain trajectory in growth, that he sees an opportunity that he feels he has a better chance of capturing if he owns this name.
Right.
Or he owns it because there's a thorn in his side because his email sucks, because right now it's called Bloom Capital, Bloom Investments, Bloom International Real Estate Group.com, whatever. He's got some pain in the ass domain name, pain in the ass email address. He's got some thorn in his side. There's no enthusiasm around the brand internally. Whatever the reason may be, he's in love with Bloom as a brand, but he hasn't wholly captured that brand in its essence because he doesn't own Bloom.com. And, that can be measured. How fast is this company growing? Where are they going to be 5 years from now? What's a generally recognized, defensible capital investment into the brand from where they're going to be 5 years? Discount that. These things can be done. They can be measured. We just need new tools.
Well, it sounds like a big data project for like Watson.
Totally.
Someone should be using Watson, feeding all this stuff in.
Watson, I sent in an application. I said, guys, look, I know you don't care, but I'm a geek about this value thing of domains, and I want to really create a way to value domain names, and I know exactly the data sets that we need to measure, and I can't do it. I'm not even smart enough to think about how, but I know you can, and I want to do it with you. How can we do it? I'm willing to put a lot of money, relatively speaking, into doing this. It would be so cool. Please get back to me. And nobody ever responded.
No.
What a shame.
Watson doesn't check his emails, apparently.
Watson's not checking his email. No, they have you can submit a project to the Watson team. They just didn't care about mine.
Okay. This is very interesting. And I want to do like 4 shows about this. And I have so many questions I want to ask about this domain valuation. First, before you put yourself down as I don't know, you kind of put yourself down there, Drew, but I mean, you are the #1 domain valuation expert in the world. Let's not kid ourselves. And, sure, Watson has a lot of numbers and it would be great to team with them, but we got some good data going. I would like to get some different kind of measurement. I want numbers on Names.Club, Jeff.
Sure.
So 2 years you've been around. How many domains have you sold or subscribed?
Yeah, so we've sold over 300 names, in that time period.
Okay.
We currently have about 165, 166 active subscriptions. So those are names that are actively being paid for on a monthly basis. And the value, the top line value of those names is close to $800,000. Right, and we've done over $1.1 million in sales to date, including buy it now names and that value. So it's continuing to grow, and all of this is before we launched, all the additional extensions and .com names, because that's brand new. I don't have data on that yet. But the interesting thing too is, and as a domain investor or someone considering listing your names, this is a non-exclusive deal. So you can still list your names on Cito and Afternic and everywhere else you want to do in your own landing pages or whatever. It's just one more opportunity to find that buyer. And what we found is for certain names at certain prices, the financing makes the difference, right? The easy payments makes the difference. We sold the highest price name we have currently on a payment plan is $67,500. And I know that person was not going to write a check for that amount, right? They would not have bought the name if they couldn't have done the easy payments. Even through Namecheap, we sold $20,000 names, but Namecheap that would not have sold at Namecheap if they could have done the financing for it. So it's another opportunity for you to get your name out there on a non-exclusive basis. And if the right buyer comes along where that finance plan makes a difference, you're going to get a sale that you wouldn't have otherwise had.
Very cool. What's the average monthly subscription price?
I don't have the exact average, but I would say to date, the sweet spot has been names in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. I would say the sweet spot that people are financing names that would have otherwise cost $5,000 or $10,000. So a $10,000 name, you're going to put down $1,500 and pay $141 a month. So that's a lot more palatable than writing a check for $10,000 up front, especially if you're a small business.
And for investors, what do the numbers look like in terms of, so if you've got like a broker code or whatever the discount codes are that you offer, what do the numbers look like on?
Yeah, so that's a great point, Drew. So we also have a broker and affiliate program. So you can sign up if you go to Names.Club. You can fill out an application to become a broker or an affiliate, and you'll get a unique code and also an affiliate link so that you can use that on your website or in email marketing or in advertisements, whatever you want to do. And that code will give the customer, so anyone who uses your code will get a 5% discount. And the way we're handling it now, since we relaunched, is that discount will come off of their down payment. So if someone uses your code, instead of having to put down 15%, they'll only put down 10%, but they'll get credited as if they put down 15%. So it's a real incentive for them to get the name because they put less money out of pocket up front. Yeah. And then you as the broker get that 10% as your commission. So you get paid that commission up front. So you get paid 10% that we collect as the down payment. And if that person cancels later on, it doesn't matter. You've been paid. You keep your money. The seller gets their name back and we start all over again. So that broker program is really effective. And of course, if you are a broker and you buy a name yourself, then you apply, both the discount and the extra 10% to yourself. So you actually get a better deal if you use your own code to buy names for yourself. And we
That's
do have
a wild deal.
some brokers doing that. Yeah. Yeah.
Wild. Okay.
I believe that's what we did. That's what we did for all the ones we bought.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got about 125.
You can use our code. If you go register names on Names.Club, use our code. I don't even know.
Tell them what it is.
What is it? Is it media options, I think?
Yeah. Okay.
Media options, one word. I think we've got several.
You have more than one code, yeah. We
Yeah.
should. If we were on top of things, we would have looked
If we were intelligent, we would have.
Yes.
I didn't even know about this. This is great. Really great.
You'll have to put it in the show notes, Tess. You have to
I
put
will.
that.
And say again.
I think it's media options. I think one of the codes that we've got is media options.
It should be. Yeah.
Okay.
So
And
if you use that code, you'll get a 5% discount, and Drew will be able to pay for the next Sherpa episode.
Yeah. and there are, you said you can go to
Names.Club. Names.Club will lead you to a little form to fill out to become a broker or an affiliate. So, we do have some affiliates who aren't necessarily domain or name brokers, but have, an appropriate business to share links to buy domain names. It could be marketing agencies, et cetera, things like that.
Okay. So Jeff, do you have any numbers on the percentage of end users versus domain investors who are purchasing through?
I don't have statistics on it, but there are a number of live sites, active end users who have bought their names, using the financing, like Loan.Club and Brunch.Club. Those are all, active websites that are on the easy payment program. So there's definitely quite a few end users out there using the domains. And there are also a lot of people who are registering the domains and looking to sell them as domain investors as well. So you've got both. But our focus from a marketing perspective, outside of this community, which is really focused on the domain industry, we're really trying to market Names.Club towards entrepreneurs, startups, small businesses who are looking for a place to get a great brandable, a great keyword domain of any extension, and be able to afford it by making these easy monthly payments. So we'll actually be launching a PR campaign and a targeted advertising campaign, reaching out to that audience. That's who we really want to attract as the end user, which is good for you if you're listing your domain with us, because obviously everyone wants to get to that end user. So that's really our focus.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, you must see some naming trends as well, not only in what people are choosing to list, but much more in what people are buying and developing on. Tell me, what naming trends are you seeing in .club domains at the registry end or on Names.Club?
Well, I think in general, one of the trends that we see at Names.Club and in general is, I think now when you have all of these choices of domain name extensions, including many that have meaning, like .club and others, the notion of making up words and deliberately misspelling words just to get a particular domain doesn't really make sense anymore. It was fashionable in 2004 when Flickr started it, and I know there's still a lot of startups doing that, but it's problematic. It doesn't pass the radio test. It costs you more to build a brand. If you're trying to build a brand on top of a made-up word, it just costs you a lot more to get that attention. And as technology moves us more and more into voice and voice search and voice commands, I think that radio test becomes even more important because, you know, I've used this example in many presentations, but I went to a tech conference once and there were two companies exhibiting with the same name. They were both called safe.com. One was spelled S-A-I-F-E and one was spelled S-A-Y-F-E. And of course, all the attention they might have garnered by exhibiting at the show, guess who got the credit? Whoever owned S-A-F-E, right, .com. And it doesn't matter if it's .com or .club or whatever. There's no reason not to have a properly spelled word to the left of the dot or words. And to try to get the best keyword or the best exact match domain that you can get for all these reasons, right? It's going to do better in organic SEO. It's going to cost you less to build your brand. It's going to cost you less and be more efficient in SEM. And it's going to pass the radio test. So when it comes to asking Alexa to go to a certain website by name, they're going to go to the right one, not some place they never heard of and you know, don't know how to spell. I think that's a trend.
You mentioned keywords and exact match domains.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a naming trend? And do you think that's driven solely by voice navigation or by more than that?
No, I think it's driven by the fact that's where the power is, you know, and I think that a lot of startups go down another route to save money, you know, and so part of our philosophy of offering these domains with the easy payments is to say to them, hey, you don't have to use a made-up word to save money. Here's an opportunity to get.
Why are you going to handicap yourself from day one? You know what I mean?
And the reason they do it is because they can pay their marketing bill $5,000 every month. But if they can pay their domain that.
Hold on. There's two reasons they do it. One is cost, and then two is trademarkability. So, you know, they say, well, we're going to make up a spelling because then we can go out and we can actually get a trademark for it, which in many cases is true. But you just have to find a keyword which, you know, is not in your vertical being used. Correct. And you can get a trademark for it, unrelated keyword. So, because as Jeff has alluded to, I mean, there's no future in made up brands. It won't work, particularly if it's not radio friendly. Like if it's not, you know, Google or Yahoo, like, you know, those are sort of on the edge, but at least if you hear it on the radio, you can still kind of figure out how to spell it, even if they are made up. You know, AOL, like, okay, you know, you can spell it, right? But if you say my company's called Closet, but it's spelled CLST.com or, you know, you're lost in the future. There is no future for you. You can't spread the word about your brand because you've got a massive handicap. It's like trying to speak to a deaf audience. You're telling them what your brand is, but they don't hear you because they can't see how to spell it. They're talking to the internet. Alexa's telling them where to go. Or
if you say, Alexa, order me new doors from Closet, you know, they're going to go to the
what? Yeah, closet doors. Here's closet doors from Amazon. So you need to have a brand which is semantically meaningful. Otherwise, you just don't have any future.
Yeah, and then for marketing purposes, you know, exact match is very powerful. It's a very powerful call to action. You could create, with all the new extensions, you can create a domain name that is a powerful call to action. It's an action-oriented domain. And even if that's just for a campaign, there's a lot of value in that.
Yep.
And with .club specifically, are you seeing primarily one word exact match, two word?
Yeah, we see one and two word exact matches. You know, club we're very fortunate because the word club, when it's used semantically correct, is often at the end of a phrase. So having club as an extension works extremely well. Almost any word or collection of words that you put to the left of the dot, slap on that club at the end, and it makes perfect sense. It's reasonable. It's logical. So we see a lot of that. And, you know, it's been going very well. What's interesting about .club, you know, since you asked, is there's no one vertical that jumps out at us and says, oh, .club is just about this. I mean, we see active users and live websites in every obvious category there could be for clubs, from brands and their loyalty and reward programs, to existing clubs, to sports teams, to celebrities for their fan clubs, to subscription boxes. You know, we see a lot of activity in the subscription box space for obvious reasons. Those are clubs. Any e-commerce business with membership is using the .club.
The .club lends itself to subscription.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like it literally just, it says subscription.
I already want to join brunch.
If I join a club, I'm going to pay some kind of annual or monthly fee, you know? So
any community, and in the e-commerce world, I mean, every e-commerce website, you know, you want people to log in, you want people to become your members, you want to have repeat business. Your customers literally are your club. So it works very well.
Yeah. Do you issue case studies?
Yeah, we've published a few case studies on our blog. We do a lot of following of live sites. I mean, our marketing is mostly around shining a light on end users of .club. You know, focusing on our business is not that interesting. It's more interesting what people do with domain names. So we see, you know, chaos.club, you know, that's a fashion line that's been doing phenomenally well. It's run by some high-end people in the fashion industry, and they're written up all the time in Vogue and Vanity Fair and the Telegraph in the UK. And of course, every time they get publicity, it mentions chaos.club as the domain name. So we get publicity.
Oh, look at this. Fancy lighter cases.
Oh, yeah. They're killing it. They keep expanding their line. They started out with iPhone cases and luggage tags. Now they've got all sorts of cool products. And that was a premium name. I think it was, if my memory serves me, it was about a $3,000 name. So it wasn't a huge investment, but they've been killing it as a brand. You know, it's been a great brand for them. But that's just one of many, many examples.
That sounds really neat. So where can we see these case studies? You said on the blog. Where's the blog?
So actually supporting our friends at Automatic, we actually use a .blog name. So if you go to club.blog, you'll find our blog there. And you can also link to it from get.club. But if you go to club.blog, you will get right to our blog.
That's really, really neat. Well, thank you for showing us these different resources out here. Super cool. Interesting to hear.
Who is the most successful of the .club end users that you know about, at least?
Oh gosh, you know, it's hard to say in terms of the businesses. You know, obviously, I don't know their numbers, but I love what they do. There's a men's underwear subscription called Heine.club. I'm actually I'm wearing my Heine's right now. Truth be told, but it's a really fun, great product.
You know how we roll. Full disclosure here on DomainSherpa.
Absolutely. But it's a great name, Heine.club. They have a lot of
Wait, no, like legit. I don't know how to spell Heine. How do I spell Heine?
H-I-N-E-Y. Heine.club.
H-I-N-E-Y.
Right. And they've got a great website. It's a lot of fun. You can choose to get one pair a month or every other month or whatever you want. So we love seeing businesses like that just creatively using a .club name. You mentioned case studies test. There's actually a website, casestudies.club, that is really pretty cool. And they've been written up in the news quite a bit. And there's all sorts of case studies there for all different industries that you could find at casestudies.club. You know, there's just so many examples. And then, you know, from a domain investor story perspective, one of the highlights has been the sale of the .club, right? THE. And that was just a case of a smart domain investor, not us, finding the perfect buyer. So we sold that name to a domain investor for $19,000. And at the time, we thought that was a great sale, you know, $19,000 for the .club. That domain investor, I think a little over a year later, he held it for about a year, maybe 15 months, sold it to a business that was called The Club. So it had an exact match name. It's a luxury home swapping network. It's very, very, very exclusive. So money wasn't really an object, and they turned around and bought it for $300,000. So that was
Wow.
a pretty good flip from 19,000 to 300,000.
All
I
cash?
would like to interview.
All cash to the best of my knowledge. All cash.
Wow.
And that was verified by Ron Jackson at DN Journal.
Wow. That's wild. There's a profitable flip for you.
Yes, there's a very profitable flip.
Wow.
And, George Verdugo is doing great with Hotels.Club. We use it all the time when we book stuff. And again, it's a great example. You pay a modest membership fee, and then you have access to all these great unlisted deals on great hotels. I think over 800,000 hotels around the world. So it's pretty amazing. So there's just tons of examples. We've got just under 300,000 real active live sites, and those are businesses actually using a .club domain. So not redirects, not park pages, but real active websites. So
300,000 active .clubs. That's a big statement of value right there.
A little, it's like 290 something, but just under 300.
I think when Bhavin was giving his keynote at NamesCon, I think .club was number 2 in terms of percentage of domains registered in use.
Yeah, if you go by
he was using MX records, so number of domains which have an assigned MX record, which means that somebody's using it for email. That's probably a very I agree that's a very good indication of use.
Absolutely.
And then the other one that he was using for indication of use was an SSL certificate. So I think if you're using SSL certificate and which now is going to be skewed because all the parking companies are offering SSLs on park domains. But if you're looking at SSL and MX records, and those are your criteria, I think you're hard pressed to find a better distinction of that a domain is being used in some way or another.
Yeah, those are good indicators. I didn't see his talk, but that sounds great. I'll have to look it up. But yeah, we're very happy about usage, and we've always been focused on usage. And again, Names.Club is really ultimately focused on usage because we want to get these names in the hands of end users. And again, across all extensions, we want to just make it easier for a small business or an entrepreneur or a startup to, as you said, use an exact match name, use a keyword domain, not cut corners and save money by making shit up, and just really getting a great name, putting it to use.
Phenomenal. This I think is huge for the entire domain industry. Jeff, thank you to you and to Colin for developing this. And
Michelle and the rest of the .club team. We've got a great team of people. It's not just me and Colin. We've got a really dedicated, hardworking team here. We love
kudos to you all. This I really think is a milestone in the domain industry for investors and especially for end users. And being, in particular, number 2 in terms of TLDs and end user usage.
Well, we like to say we are, based on our data, we're number 1, but that's okay. 2 tries harder, right?
Well, I was just imagining after .com.
Okay, perfect. I'll take it.
But I mean, that's just phenomenal, and really speaks to both the value of .club, but also how you are understanding end user implementation, usage, perspectives, and able to speak to that. So I'm so glad that you're here. I hope that you will check the comments on DomainSherpa, because I'm sure the Sherpa Network will have plenty of questions for you on this show in particular. And I'm very excited for the next time you're back.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Tess, and thank you, Drew. It's always great to see you both and talk to you. And thank you to all the Sherpa listeners. Hopefully you got some value out of this conversation.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Drew.
Thanks,
so good
Jeff.
to have you on. All
Thanks.
right. Take care. Bye.